NVIDIA has been the undisputed king of AI, with its stock skyrocketing to new heights. But as investors look for the next big AI play, one name that keeps popping up is AMD. With its new lineup of powerful AI chips, is it finally time to take a serious look at this long-term rival? In this video, we'll dive deeply into the key buy levels of AMD, alongside the options market and what it's currently pricing in for the stock. We'll also be covering the latest news in tech, and alongside with our investment thesis and price targets for the stock. First of all, let's break everything down from the daily chart of AMD. As you can see here, the overall trend has been bullish, meaning that the buyers have been in control for the majority of the year. We can see here that we are holding well above the 50 EMA overall, and we're also holding above the longer term moving average, which is a 200 EMA, which is this dotted line right here. We also had a bullish crossover with a 50 crossed above the overall 200 on the date of the 8th of July of 2025, signaling a shift in the trend. We were also reiterating that the stock was bullish as soon as it got above its 50 EMA, right here at a price around $100, showing that there was more bullishness in this name. But now the stock has been pulling back here. Ever since we made this high of around the 13th of August, we are down approximately 12% from that high. And this is something that I believe is a buying opportunity on this stock. As you can see here, we are seeing some support at the 50 EMA. Right, we're seeing some buying around these levels, because if we were to see more selling, the volume would be more profound. And actually, we're seeing buyers picking up the name here exactly at this level. Something that's also forming confluence is that we see here the RSI. When it's at this low, it shows that the overall selling is overall starting to subdue, and we're starting to see buyers picking up. And when we see a low exactly like this, that's when it starts to rise, showing that the overall trend is now starting to shift and there's buyers present in the name. As you can see here, the last time we had this on the RSI here was April 10th. And as we know, that was the April lows here of tariffs. So let's go back and look exactly at that date. We had a very strong sell-off here. As you can see, let me just point another arrow so you guys can see that. We had a sell-off all the way down here to this low. And exactly when that low formed, that is when we had that low pretty much of 25 on the RSI, showing an overextension to the downside. And it was only just a matter of time before buyers came in and we would see this reversion towards the upside. And we've been seeing nothing but upside. That's until where we got a little bit overextended towards the dates here. We had the RSI being a little bit high, as you can see here. We had the RSI being above 70, showing that the buyers were overall being too aggressive, and we had to expect a pullback. But now the levels are leveling off, and we're finally getting across above this overall EMA here, this yellow we can see here on the chart. We're finally getting that, showing that there are buyers. Now, what I would like to see here on the name is a clear upside above this overall anchored VWAP. This level here, this red line, signifies the sellers that came in exactly at this high. And what we want is price action that shows that those buyers are going to become more aggressive than these sellers that are up here. So what I would like to see on the stock would be an overall momentum shift like this. So a candle that breaks above, that would be labeled the breakout candle, and have one or two candles here that form pretty much like a overall hold above that level. We probably get a retest of the level like this, probably pull back a little bit, and then the propulsor, which would allow us to show that these sellers that were here were not powerful enough to bring the buyers that came in here and deflect them. Pretty much this would be my bullish stance, where I believe that AMD is extremely bullish, and we have the price targets towards the highs of around $226 here on the name. As well, something that's really forming the confluence here is that if we plot an anchored VWAP from this important high, we see that this is where we're also finding support here, not only at the 50 EMA, but in this general zone here that we're seeing on the chart, which I can label here around this zone. We are seeing some area of support. And what I mean by this is that not only we have the 50 EMA, which is this yellow line that we see on the chart, but also the prior swing high anchored VWAP. This zone is an important confluence zone where I believe that buyers are really engulfed here, and they're looking to pick up this name at a discount, especially like I said, with the RSI being low. Now, I do expect the price targets on the stock to be towards the highs and towards the levels of $270 here on the stock here of AMD. I am fully bullish on this name, and I believe that over time, as NVIDIA grows, there will be market share gain for AMD as the company is second toward NVIDIA and is also leading a powerful contract with Oracle, which has seen around $500 billion in backlog on their most recent earnings call. So I'm really bullish on AMD. So now let's take a closer look at the overall options market. And what this allows us to see is how much bullishness or bearishness is being priced in onto a stock. We have certain overall here metrics like the put volume, which is the bearish bets, the call volume, which is the bullish bets, total volume, the put to call volume, the open interest or how many contracts are available at this certain price, as well as the overall implied volatility or how much volatility is being priced in or expected by the market. As you can see here, we have the nearest expiration date to be the 19th of September, with the call volume being double than the put volume. This to me is really bullish, as it shows that we have more buyers pricing in higher upside, and we have this trend continue all the way even toward years out. As you can see here, all the way towards the date of the 17th of April of 2026 here, where we have the put volume being higher than the call volume. So around this date, I do expect some overall pullback and some overall resistance at that key level here before the DTE expires. Now, anything before that, I do expect bullishness on AMD over the next year. Now let's take a look at the most recent news on AMD. Obviously, price action doesn't move by itself. We need a catalyst, and in this case, this was a catalyst for that day. We had AMD trading up on this particular day, and what happened was that the overall shares of AMD alongside many of the chip makers like NVIDIA is strong after a strong outlook from software giant, like I said, Oracle, which fueled optimism for companies exposed to artificial intelligence demand. We had Oracle shares soaring after the company boasted its outlook, citing booming AI demand, and this positive sentiment rippled across the semiconductor industry, lifting shares of the AI chip makers like AMD, NVIDIA, and Broadcom. The move is also supported by a broader strength in the sector, as recent data showed global semiconductor sales hit $62 billion in July, a 20% year-over-year increase, obviously driven by high demand for data center chips and memory products, reinforcing investor confidence in the industry's prospects. Like I said, this is really bullish news, and the companies that are going to be greatly benefited are going to be not only AMD, but also ASML. If you guys saw my last video, we've been really bullish on this company because without ASML's technology of EUV and especially high NA EUV, everything we would have access to, the most advanced chips that are needed to train AI on smaller nodes, would not exist, right? And obviously with this new price tag that they had on their high NAE, pretty much NA EUV of $280 million for the overall machinery, this will allow for faster expansion and easier training with less power consumption for the majority of these data centers. So I believe that this is such a bullish news, especially after Oracle's earnings. Now, we do know that the king of AI is NVIDIA, but I believe that on the long term, over 10 years, there will be market share being redistributed between the overall majority of chip makers. I believe that NVIDIA will only lose market share towards competitors like AMD and Broadcom. This comes to show that NVIDIA and AMD are greatly benefited over the next decade, and AMD has the most upside potential with currently a valuation of $280 billion compared to NVIDIA's of $4 trillion. I believe there's a wide gap between the current valuation that AMD is being priced in compared to what the market has to be pricing it at. I do believe the stock has more upside, and I have a price target today towards AMD of $228 on the stock. I am fully bullish on the company and the overall AI race. Now, I know that many of you guys have been commenting on an overall strategy of how to trade these very volatile names. And here's one of the strategies. So you can see here we have the overall post-market data, which is this blue, and the pre-market data, which starts at around 1 in the morning, all the way towards the open here of the stock market. As you can see here, all we have to do here for this strategy is plot the high of the pre-market, which shows an important supply level, and plot the low here, which would be an overall level of support at the levels here. Once the market opens and we break below, for example, today we broke below this area of support, AMD was a short at this price of $161 towards a price target of previous area of support, which was yesterday's low here at around $159 here on the stock. We had a short-term bounce and we came back and retested that level that we failed on around 6:30 in the morning or 9:30 Eastern time here, which is where exactly the buyers did not have to sustain, and the overall sellers came in with such an aggressiveness that prompted the stock down even lower towards again the price of right here of $159.56 right here, which is just where we found buyers here at this level, and we uptrended all the way towards the close. So this strategy is very helpful in acknowledging the imbalances between the levels of buyers and sellers and gives us a very cut and deep explanation as to why the levels of supply and demand affect the markets, especially after seeing this very intense decline. This is where we saw the biggest candle because all these people that were long had to cover their positions and got their stop losses triggered. So with AMD and the overall semiconductor industry poised for intense growth over the next decade, I am firmly bullish and reiterate my price target on the stock. AMD is going to be gaining market share as NVIDIA slowly loses it, as the competitive advantages of the company start to weaken over time. I still do believe that NVIDIA is going to be the main leader, but AMD will gain some market share from that leader. Now, the valuation is obviously undervalued here in AMD, and that's why I expect more upside. So, let me know down in the comment section what your price targets or your valuations are on AMD, and whether you believe that it is poised for intense AI growth. Apart from that, feel free to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and as always, don't let the markets whip you guys out. I'll see you guys on the next one.